Okay, so we'll get started. So this is the final presentation that we presented at the Heart Hackathon, and it's modified slightly, like Madhu said. So we took out the commercial section essentially and replaced that with a bit about the team structure and how the team was managed. So um, we are Team Bath Heart, and I'll be going over, and my team will be going over the development of a novel total artificial heart. Today we'll be covering a number of things, including, like I said, team introduction, team structure, background, future work, the TBH24 design itself. Those two should be swapped around, but anyways, and then a conclusion. So to get started, and during the Heart Hackathon, we mentioned about intellectual property. So, as part of protecting our intellectual property, we haven't disclosed much about our internal mechanism, and that's because we're figuring out ways of patenting our design. And as part of that, we don't want to disclose too much about it. So that's just a notice. So for those of you who don't know who we are Team Bath Heart. We are based in the UK, and we are the University of Bath's only medical engineering competition team, and we're designing a novel total artificial heart. Um, Next slide. So we take great pride in the diversity of our group. So we now have a 50-50 split between male and female team members, and we have more than 80 students ranging from mechanical, electrical, chemical engineering, natural sciences, and many more, who are all contributing to one mission. And it's very exciting for us. Next slide. So in Japan, we had a nice split between our technical and commercial team, so they could each provide sort of a unique perspective between of all the work that they've done. So a bit about how the team is structured and just sort of advice and project management and whatnot. I'll go over that now. So we have these roles that are assigned specifically. Our team is huge. Like I said, we have nearly 80 people now, but within that, we've got specific roles, and the core team actually is around only 20 people. So that's much easier to manage. And this is sort of the breakdown. We have team lead, which is me this year, and I've handed over to the next team lead for next year. But I look over the technical and commercial teams, and each of those teams has a technical and commercial lead. Within the technical team, we always have at least two mechanical leads, two electrical leads, and two biology leads. And now we're introducing a lab coordinator as well to take care of our lab and build room and so on. And on the commercial side, we have loads of more specific roles because I think it helps give everyone sort of a purpose and know what their job is. So we have a business team, marketing team, and quality and regulatory team. And within that, we have specific managers who are responsible for certain tasks. So finance and sponsorship manager. We have social media who take care of all the social media, branding, events, website. And then within quality and regulatory, we have a Q&R manager, an IP manager, and now we're introducing a sustainability manager. And all of these sort of just fall under the commercial team. And yeah, I kind of just play a hand in each of those roles sometimes, or just communicating with the technical and commercial teams and making sure that everything's getting done, or if anything is not getting done, then I will do it or we'll pass it on to someone else. So that's just sort of how it works in terms of roles. And then next slide. Within the roles, we have obviously communication is a big thing. So to do that, we obviously have to have a lot of meetings and sometimes too many meetings, but they have to be done. So we have weekly general team meetings, and these are run by the team lead. And this is so that everyone in the team can get together and can go over updates, general updates, technical updates if needed. So it's a nice sort of weekly moment for everyone to get together. We have weekly technical meetings, weekly commercial meetings, and then also sub-team meetings if needed. So that would be social media team meetings and whatnot if they feel that they need them. But yeah, and then on top of that, I also introduced a monthly newsletter, which was sort of an internal newsletter that was distributed within the team so that everyone, on top of the general team meetings, people could be in the loop. And now we're thinking of widening that to our department so that everyone who's sort of contributed to the team can get involved and potentially sponsors as well, because it's quite a nice thing to read. We also had a shared calendar. We have a job board in which we split like jobs, and jobs get assigned and get completed and whatnot. Um, and then we also have kept strong relationships with our universities and supervisors. And this obviously we know that we're very lucky to have because we have a lot of help from our supervisors. And yeah, and it's important to keep that relationship going and keep make sure that because they're the ones who kind of know what to do and what not to do. And then something that I introduced when I became team lead was sort of a feedback system. And I'm hoping that this continues. And it's basically a feedback systems for me and the leads to sort of go over. So I will give them feedback and things that they're doing well, things that they're not doing well, and I expect the same back. And then I ask them to pass on that same information and do the same thing with their leads. So it's kind of a nice monthly, or not even monthly, but every so often, whenever it's needed, review kind of system, and it helps sort of smooth things along. So my advice as a project manager is say yes to everything. I think one thing that I found, or that we found as a team, was that saying yes to everything, especially in the early days, because we are a relatively new team and so are the other teams in their universities. I think saying yes to everything, such as sponsorship events or meetings with the university or university events or anything to do with press releases, like we just said yes, even though it was quite time consuming. I think it really helped push our name and push sort of the work we've done. And then the next thing would be focus on recruitment. So when I was speaking to people at the Heart Hackathon, a lot of people were saying that they have trouble with handovers and handing over the knowledge from previous years. And we go through the exact same thing every year because, for example, the eight of us, well, seven of us are graduating now. So there's going to be a big gap between the knowledge that we have and the new team will have. So focusing on recruitment and making sure that the handovers are good as well is quite important. So that's my next point. But you will always also need a bigger team, even though it might be harder to manage, but you can always have people to rely on in the end. And then you can kind of figure out who you can rely on as well. So that's quite important. And I think those two may not seem like they're quite important at the start, but they do end up being important in the end. But yeah. And then having a robust filing system. I say that even though we can't find any files in our filing system, but we do have a pretty robust filing system and we document everything. So once we find something, we know it's there and it's sort of all stored and we follow ISO 13485 or whatever it is. And we make sure that everything's sort of put in there so that at least everything's documented and that makes the handovers a lot easier as well when it comes to it. But besides that, we do recognize that we have a lot of university support. So in the past, how it worked for us was that our team, we have a bunch of competition teams in Bath, but our team specifically would approach the department independently with a proposed budget, and then we would ask them for money. But now that's changed completely, and it changed right before we went to Japan, so quite recently. And now it works by fairly splitting the department money between all the competition teams, and that includes money and space. And that's based on several criteria, such as the budget that they have, the commitment and our contribution to the university, the diversity that we have, leaf assessments, and equality, diversity, and inclusion. So a bunch of criteria, and we have to fill out this form and basically sell ourselves to the university. And they tell us kind of how much we're worth as a competition team, essentially. But that does help push us to do better and do a lot more. And I think it's a nice way to kind of make it fair for all the competition teams to have a fair chance of getting the money that they deserve. So that's a pretty good system that they've put in place very recently, and we're kind of taking advantage of. But yeah, we do recognize that we have a lot of support from the university as well.